This is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Today's reading is from chapter 17, Forgiveness and the Holy Relationship, and we're reading from section 5, the healed relationship. The holy relationship is the expression of the holy instant in living in this world. Like everything about salvation, the holy instant is a practical device, witnessed to by its results. The holy instant never fails. The experience of it is always felt. Yet without expression, it is not remembered. The holy relationship is a constant reminder of the experience in which the relationship became what it is. And the unholy relationship is a continuing hymn of hate in praise of its maker. So is the holy relationship a happy song of praise to the Redeemer of relationships.
I want to point out that this idea of relationship, not to let your brain derail into thinking that it's about people relating to each other. Obviously, that's an aspect. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's a big aspect because but it's my relationship with objects. It's my relationship with the world around me. It's my relationship with institutions. It's relationships with myself. Relationship. There, mm-hmm. If you're one, you only have relationship with yourself. That's God and the Son.
Right.
But in the fragmentation that we're in, you relate with so many things.
Yes.
And that's what this is about. It's about all those relationships.
Well, because all of it is our perceptual world, and we need to remember that we're living in our own little universe. And so we only can see from the perspective of where we are. And so everything is given the opportunity, everything that I relate to is given the opportunity to be transformed through the holy instant and through this holy relationship that it's speaking of. And it puts, it says here that it is witnessed to by its results, the holy relationship, and that the holy instant never fails. It's always felt. The experience of it is always felt. So these are some indicators.
Okay, keep going with that. Okay, the holy instant, the results are it never fails. So what's it telling us?
Well, first of all, it said it's a practical device witnessed to by its results, and the holy instant never fails. So it means that every moment is an opportunity for a holy instant.
What I hear it saying is, along those lines, that the holy instant is happening continuously across the board at all times. It's always effective, and it never fails. Mm-hmm. It's not on and off.
Well, right. The only thing that's on and off is my perception.
It says it is the experience of it is always felt.
Well,
always felt, yet without expression, it is not remembered. So we're talking about expression and memory.
Yes.
And we're saying that we're always experiencing the holy instant. Always. I'm not remembering it because it's not being expressed. So we're talking now about something that's always here, always with us, never fails. How is it expressed? we're going to talk about expression and memory.
Right.
This is a different use of the word memory.
Right.
Which helps to heal or explain some of the other references to memory.
And what would be some of these expressions of the holy instant? Well, the holy instant always involves love, where love is remembered. It's remembered of the other or through myself. So
remembered is felt.
Yeah, remembered is
We're
felt.
talking about feeling. Now we're getting into the nervous system.
Well,
the nervous system. How do you, unless the holy the holy relationship is expressed. Mm-hmm. Now that expression means, in other words, I'm always experiencing holy relationships. I'm always experiencing holy instants. But they're not being expressed. That's my goal. Mm-hmm. It's my role to express the holy relationship. Now, when you say expresses, what do you mean, man? If you've got a gripe with this person over there, who's expressing what to whom? It's up to me to initiate this idea of expression.
Right.
Expression. I'm introducing something into the world that wasn't there before. Mm-hmm. And when I feel that, in other words, the Spirit rewards me with my faith that I can express the ever-present holy relationship. The Holy Spirit rewards me with what? Feelings. It tickles my nerve endings. I go, wow, something happened.
Right.
Something happened there. Mm-hmm. When that happens, what do we call that? Is it, wow, cool experience? No, it's memory.
And it's also a miracle, usually.
Yeah, it's a miracle and it's a memory.
Right. Okay, so as the unholy relationship is a continuing hymn of hate in praise of its maker. Why do we want that? The unholy relationship, which is where the ego goes all the time. Of, always needing to get something from the relationship to feel as though its needs are being met.
And as Kenneth Wapnick would say, it's the egoic system, the ego as the maker, let's say, of the unholy relationship filled with hate. There are many rewards there, okay? There are rewards. It's not like, wow, what an idiot. You went with the unholy relationship versus the holy relationship. It's a hymn of hate. Absolutely. But it's a closed thought system. And in that closed thought system of the ego, there are apparent rewards, apparent punishments. It's a game that's being played in a certain way. We're making a choice between how we play our life.
I think that in the unholy relationship, as I said, is about getting needs met. So we feel good if we feel as though the people who we're in partnership with or in the world, a boss, a child, a loving husband, wife, loving relationship or whatever, supposedly. And then, but if certain things aren't happening in that relationship, we can't see it as holy. We need to have certain parameters. Otherwise we say, hey, that person doesn't love me anymore, or I'm not being a loving partner.
But, okay, you said the unholy relationship is a situation where I'm trying to get needs met.
Yeah.
And it says here that the holy relationship is a situation where there's a constant reminder of how the relationship got to be where it is. That's what So is it fair to say, anticipating something maybe in the book, I don't really know, that the holy relationship is a reminder that there are no needs and that they're always met.
Yes. Yeah.
In other words, I run into a relationship. In the unholy relationship, it's like, how am I gonna mine this situation so that I'm stronger even at the expense of others? Okay, something like that. Or there's a promotion or anything. It can be very innocent. But the holy relationship and the holy instant in terms of that is I go into the relationship almost in the egoic thought system, let's say, of I'm going to get something out of this, and then because of the call of the Holy Spirit, because I've decided to express the holy relationship, instead of indulge myself in the unholy relationship, I'm going to express it. Faith rewards, and in comes the Holy Spirit, and suddenly I go, I didn't have a need. I didn't have a need. It was already met. The person, in other words, peace reigns.
Yes, peace
There's
reigns.
nowhere to go. This person's great.
Yes. Yes. And then just to finish that off, and so the holy relationship is a happy song of praise to the Redeemer of relationships. And who's the Redeemer? The Christ, the Holy Spirit. So that is the Redeemer of relationships, reminding us that we do not do this alone. You have to have the relationship with the Holy Spirit, with the Christ itself.
Right. The idea of piles of relationships, in other words, I relate to a couch or a lamp or another person,
Right.
or a person today and then tomorrow and tomorrow. That's all the fragmentation. That's all the separation.
Right.
All of that is the separation. So the Redeemer of that is the Holy Spirit gluing those things together. And Jesus Christ in this, or the Christ, is Jesus actually, as if you want to call him the author of the Course, has identified himself with the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
So,
and the Christ.
Wherever you want to go with that.
Yeah.
Okay, paragraph 2. The holy relationship, a major step toward the perception of the real world, is learned. It is the old unholy relationship transformed and seen anew. The holy relationship is a phenomenal teaching accomplishment. In all its aspects, as it begins, develops, and becomes accomplished, it represents the reversal of the unholy relationship. Be comforted in this. The only difficult phase is at the beginning. For here, the goal of the relationship is abruptly shifted to the exact opposite of what it was. This is the first result of offering the relationship to the Holy Spirit to use for his purposes. Getting some very clear, mechanical
that's what you
information
have to do.
here.
You have to offer the relationship to the Holy Spirit.
So do you have anything to say about the first, the only hard part is the first part?
Yes, because there has to be a willingness to turn, we think we know what we want or need, and the relationship is always, well, if I turn it over, well, I don't, and then you go, well, I don't know what'll happen then. Well, I don't know if it'll change, and then, well, and actually the ego kind of goes bonkers, to tell you the truth, when the first idea of holding it to the fire, the relationship, and saying, well, we're going to transform it, because oftentimes when you finally hand it over, things start to come up. I mean, even when we started to do this whole thing, where we're doing our lessons every day and everything else, egoic conflicts often come to the surface because it's coming to the surface to say, I don't like what I feel, and therefore I want to see it another way. But oftentimes in our daily lives and everything else, we don't think of holding, of turning situations and whatever's going on to the Holy Spirit. And when we do, that means the Holy Spirit is going to shine the light on how my ego's racket is running, how your ego's racket is running. It's going to shine a light on it so that we can see what that is, that we're actually paying homage to a hateful relationship and don't know it. Reminded of the child inside of me who has come up with the needs, who feels threatened and vulnerable when those needs aren't met. There's all kinds of things that start to rise to the surface a little bit. And so in order to have it cleaned off, as light comes in, the darkness is revealed for what it is.
Any healing begins with a wound.
Yeah.
When I enter into a relationship with the Holy Spirit, and it says, actually in the Course, it gets to where there's really only one wound. But we've got to go through the many.
The separation from God. Yes.
We have to go through the many wounds to understand that general teaching.
So in the middle there, it said, in all its aspects, as it begins, develops, and becomes accomplished, it represents the reversal of the unholy relationship. Then it goes on, be comforted in this. The only difficult phase is in the beginning. Yeah, so when you're first going to hand it over, expect some little rough water. It's just part of it. And then understand that you still want to see and know the holy relationship and experience the holy instant. Don't be frightened by it. Just say, oh, this is up for me. Hopefully, whatever relationship you're in, it has the ability to be talked through. If not, it doesn't, apparently it doesn't matter to the Holy Spirit.
it will still use that relationship to give you new witnesses if you're honest about yourself wanting to have a holy relationship.
Well, what's happened to me lately is that I still get my toes stepped on. I still get hurt. I still have thin skin. I still have the usual wounds. Everything happens the same. And my first thought is always, what's being done to me? How am I being abused? How am I being misused? What, the usual aches and pains, the usual. But almost immediately it goes into, what's your racket, Phil? As soon, it's almost immediate. What's your racket? The aches and pains are still there.
Right.
Nothing changes. But it's just that now I'm an agent in my condition. It's not out there. In other words,
I agree.
It's a pulling that projection back in. And after that, other more pleasant aspects of the relationship can go forward. But those two are still very similar. I'm still hurting either way.
Until it becomes second nature to have a holy relationship.
Yeah, right. Second nature.
Okay. This invitation is accepted immediately. So as soon as you invite the Holy Spirit to come into the relationship, it's accepted immediately. The Holy Spirit wastes no time introducing the practical results of asking him to enter. At once, his goal replaces yours. This is accomplished very rapidly, but it makes the relationship seem disturbed, disjunctive, and even quite distressing. Okay, I got a little ahead of myself. The reason is quite clear. For the relationship as it is out of line with its own goal and clearly unsuited for the purpose that has been accepted for it. In its unholy condition, your goal was all that seemed to give it meaning. Now, it seems to make no sense. Many relationships have been broken off at this point, and the pursuit of the old goal reestablished in another relationship. For once, the unholy relationship has accepted the goal of holiness. It can never again be what it was.
This is so fantastic.
I know, it's kind of a warning. Never again.
Well, it's a warning, but it's also, it's a heads up.
And it's a good one, though.
It's a heads up for the organic beauty, the structural beauty of the Holy Spirit and the egoic illusion and their overlapping place. And if I'm in the realm of, this relationship suddenly, like let's say I took what I said a second ago, and I feel like I get my toes stepped on, and then I'm hurting. And then suddenly, let's say it happens with this group of people over there, and I say something and I get a comment and I have thin skin and I react to that comment and I don't like it. And so I say, no, I'm doing the Course in Miracles, so I'm going to stay in there. And I've got my call out to the Holy Spirit, and I get a message. Oh, what are you doing, Phil? How are you gaming this yourself? How are you gaming this? Now, I went into that relationship with that group to get those needs met.
Yeah.
And so when the Holy Spirit gives me that information, I'm out of there. I quit. I don't need to go there anymore. It's saying be careful of that.
Right.
Because you're just into serial pain. It's going to be pain in sequences of this. And to weather it, stay the course. What did it say? Your goal was all that seemed to give it meaning. Now that goal goes away, right? Now I say, well, I was in it as my racket. So my goal of getting something from them, they become disempowered to suit my egoic needs.
Right.
So I suddenly go, well, we don't need that, whether it's a woman or a group of people or even a job type thing. I pull out. But now it seems to make no sense. Okay, many relationships have been broken off at this point in the pursuit of the old goal reestablished in another relationship. For once, the unholy relationship has accepted.
Yeah, because now you say, okay, well, obviously, this person isn't going to da-da-da-da.
Is this not massively powerful?
It is. It's massively powerful.
It's giving very clear psycho-emotional, it said practical in the first part, practical psycho-emotional flags to watch out for in all relationships.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Because what happens is, as soon as you have that in the Holy Spirit, or you get the insight, I'm mining these relationships. I'm here for unholy purposes. That's the great insight I get. Well, why hang out here? I'm not, I'm not getting what I wanted.
Right. And it does not mean that you stay in abusive relationships. I mean, and say, I'm going to call in the Holy Spirit and, this abusive relationship is going to just change.
Okay, but let's go into it. Go into that. Abusive relationship. Let's say every Saturday night, some guy likes to hit you.
Or it can be mental or whatever.
Yeah, mental abuse, right? Abusive.
Whatever. What's happened is in those relationships, the unbalance is you have to look at your own littleness that you've taken on in this other one's now being able to abuse me. And once the gig is up, once the Holy Spirit will shine a light on the whole thing, and you will definitely be able to experience whether or not the Holy Spirit is saying to yourself, if you're honest, nothing should diminish another's light, not you against another person or your own. And so that's what I came up with when some things are happening. And it's like, no, because otherwise you become depressed, suicidal, all kinds of other things. The Holy Spirit would never want that. So it says, yes, it can get intense, but all things need to be balanced out because the Holy Spirit is always going to have your best interests in mind. And it will want to save your light, your beingness, as much as anything else. And the other person in an abusive relationship, if you are the victim, supposedly, obviously in the Course, there are no victims, there are no oppressors and things like that, because it's all illusion. That being said, we all have to play it out in this realm until we get to a place where we can understand what it is to be at peace in our own skin, around the people that are going to support us in our lives. So, but most of us live with a certain amount of egoic needs that need to be met in a relationship in order for us to want to stay in it. Those things could get disrupted. That's all I can say is normal in the process. I mean,
well, and the other side of it is what I'm thinking about, because there's a frightening question that one will ask themselves. Maybe I shouldn't have left.
Right.
Maybe I shouldn't have bailed on that relationship. Maybe I should have stayed the course. I mean, if I had been there, if I had been alert, this isn't an Olympic process. This isn't about how many hurdles I can clear in what amount of time. It's not that fight, because it's a process of reclamation. It's a process of the atonement. And in that, just because I think I got the big idea right now as I'm reading this, and now go back and, let's say, demonize a very recent, let's say, relationship, relatively recent relationship, and say, I should have stayed the course, because literally the course is saying, you bailed and then you're going to repeat the thing.
right.
Just to understand that the Holy Spirit is not limited in healing capacity.
Right.
There's no order of difficulty in miracles, etc., etc. And so, fail again.
Yeah.
You fail. Okay, it's all right. You failed again. And maybe that was like your soulmate, and you shouldn't have bailed, because you really shouldn't have bailed, but you did. That means you should. That means you did. That's reality.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
That's reality. There's nothing to recreate. You can't go back.
No.
That
And forgiveness of the fact that you entered into it with either expectations and everything else of self and the other. You want to be able to look at the thing and whatever seemed to occur in the past and say, I need to let this go. I need to forgive it all, forgive myself and everything else. The Holy Spirit is always going to work with us where we are, and it's also going to give witnesses to the fact that you've handed over the relationship to the Holy Spirit to be healed. And I don't know where the rest of it, because we didn't read this ahead of time, so I don't know really where the rest of this.
Well,
this
there's
is
a
going to go.
lot of ways. Okay, the Holy
Yeah.
Spirit doesn't just heal in this way. It's not like the Holy Spirit says, I got a half a dozen ways of dealing with you.
Right.
It's an infinite variety.
Right.
An infinite variety of paths, an infinite variety of techniques and methods. Once you enter into relationship with the Holy Spirit, it's not really that interested in, I don't know, I mean, just to talk honestly, I don't think the Holy Spirit is necessarily interested in having you, let's say, married for 50 years or something. Now, it's not disinterested in it. I'm just saying that's not the interest.
No, the interest is
is in the atonement and
yes,
in the healing.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean,
and
well,
recognizing always who and what you really are in relationship to God. You are a holy son of God. Not the body, not the, don't get confused about what that looks like because we want to make it about the body. The body is a holy son of God. No, the holy son of God is much greater than all of that. So, but that being said, we are all holy sons of God. And until the veil is lifted off so that we can actually see accurately, and all of that requires our willingness to enter into these places that it initially seem difficult. But given the long haul, you'll see yourself in the right light, and you'll see others in the right light.
One last thing though about that relationship thing and about the possibility of rethinking. Like if in other words, having just read this, if I were you, I would be rethinking. I know that
Yes.
I'm rethinking, and I'm going, well, maybe, and you've got this to realize, now is the only time there is that so that the way that now. The now with a capital N is structured. We don't understand. We can't understand how that relates to what we would call a past or what we can call a future.
Right.
The now is a quality of time that is essentially timeless. So the play of forms that happen, in other words, leaving relationships prematurely or staying with them way too long, and all that kind of language, now is where you are. It's what you said.
Yes.
Where you are.
Right.
Now is where you are.
Yes, it is.
I don't mean to be redundant with the now thing.
No, it's important because the holy instant is only experienced now. It's not experienced, in a sense of time. It's a space of timelessness. So even the one who appears to be abusing or whatever else, you can see through their racket and you can love them. That doesn't mean to stay with them. It just means, oh, I see. And then all of a sudden you can also see, oh, the most loving thing that I'm supposed to do is leave. Or the most loving thing I'm supposed to do is stay. You'll be able to see it in the holy instant.
Or if you are in that relationship and you say, light fuse and get away, I'm getting out of this relationship, and there's not a lot of thought about anything except escape. That's where you are in the now. That's where you are in the now.
Right.
And when you do come to the Holy Spirit 10 years later, 5 years later, 2 months later, whatever it is, having burned bridges, having made some mistakes, the past is healed in the present.
Yes.
This is the nature of the miracle. The temptation of the ego becomes extremely intense with this shift in goals, for the relationship has not as yet been changed sufficiently to make its former goal completely without attraction, and its structure is threatened by the recognition of its inappropriateness for meeting its new purpose. The conflict between the goal and the structure of the relationship is so apparent that they cannot coexist. Yet now, the goal will not be changed. Yet now, the goal will not be changed. The earlier goal. Set firmly in the unholy relationship, there is no course except to change the relationship to fit the goal. Until this happy solution is seen and accepted as the only way out of the conflict, the relationship may seem to be severely strained. Wow, that's some interesting sentences. What is this shift in goals?
The shift in goal is that you want the holy relationship. You don't want the egoic relationship.
Okay, so I no longer want to mine that relationship for something it can give me. That loses interest for me.
Well, it might not lose interest right away. That's what just happened.
That's what it said.
Yeah, you're going to have to bring it to your awareness of why you thought that it would meet that which you thought you lacked.
Okay, I've still got the goal. of mining that relationship, but I realized, well, it's not working.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've still got the goal.
Yeah, so all of it has to be brought to awareness first, because if we don't understand how we are acting in the relationship, we cannot know why we really came and are in the relationship to begin with. Oftentimes, as I've said in other podcasts, we're there because we're actually with another person healing the relationship with a parent, with a brother or sister, if you've been from a large family or not. It could be even a grandparent. It can be, whoever the biggest caregivers were in our lives. Inevitably, no one can care for us perfectly. There's always something that comes along with those relationships, that some form of littleness or the self of grandiosity starts to form because we cover up our littleness with our grandiosity. So we just need to know that in this world, no perfect relationships until it's actually transformed into the holy relationship, at which point all relationships are transformed into a holy relationship. It works with the one. The Holy Spirit works with one, and then all things become more clear about all relationships. So the handing the most special relationship, because we talked in the previous podcast about the special relationship and its purpose and everything else, and now you're willing to change the goal of specialness into a holiness. Some things are going to come up. It's just the ego is going to be threatened by, because now it says its structure is threatened by the recognition of its inappropriateness for meeting its new purpose. Because its old purpose was that, we have an unsaid deal here of why we're together. Even in a boss-employee relationship, there's an unsaid deal of how you work with that person and what that boss expects from you. So there's always mixed expectations out of those relationships, and somewhere along the lines, it fails.
Can I try to tell a story?
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is a made up story. Okay,
Okay.
It's there are elements that are true, but
Okay.
to try to understand this, I want to see the structure of this thing,
Okay.
how it's actually working. Okay, so let's say John likes this girl, and he falls for this girl because she's exotic and she just happened to be a Pepsi model. Okay, so John likes the Pepsi model. He's doing the Course in Miracles, and it's a painful but also very exciting relationship because it's a Pepsi model. I mean, it's like, wow, I saw her on TV, and now she's, so that there's sense of like, I can be validated. John can be validated in this relationship with the Pepsi model. He can be validated because she was on TV and she's a certain thing. But the Holy Spirit is working there because he is a student of the Course in Miracles in some brand, in some way. Could be some Vedanta, I don't know what it is. But anyway, he's a student of A Course in Miracles. And he sees the woundedness and the fragility of the Pepsi model and sees in her that she is looking for a kind of a security in him, and he's looking for a certain sort of self-aggrandizement in her. And so that becomes revealed to him. What has happened is she's no longer a good candidate for him to suit, to build up himself. She's not a good candidate. So John loses interest, ironically, in the Pepsi model. She at one time represented everything that he wanted, and now he sort of, as they would say, throws her under the bus. He's just not interested in her because she's now vulnerable, and he sees the truth, but it's a half-truth because John still has the idea that he can be in a relationship. The Holy Spirit hasn't gotten into him, so he still has the idea that he can find something out there, but it's just not the Pepsi model. It's really the lady who's a docent at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, okay, because she's classier, she's got, a better vocabulary. And so now he has a sense of a transformation of what his earlier goal was.
Right.
And he can't get rid of that, which is to build himself up
in
relation
relationship
to the other. So he starts up with the docent at the other place, thinking because she's a docent in a museum versus a Pepsi model who had tattoos, he's made a qualitative shift in fact, it becomes revealed that he has only shifted the forms
Yeah,
of those entities, and he is still stuck with the idea that he's going to build himself up. Mm-hmm. So what the goal of this would be, I'm going to say, whether he stays with the Pepsi model and has honest conversations, and they explore their mutual vulnerabilities together because he received this, and then the Holy Spirit just staying with this uncomfortable phase because he can no longer get his need met from her, and yet he's still stuck with his goal.
Yeah.
Right? He's still
Right.
stuck with his goal. So what does it say here? The relationship to fit the goal, of course, except to change the relationship to fit the goal until this happy solution is seen and accepted is the only way out of the conflict. In other words, his goal is not the atonement still.
Right. And until you want the atonement, until you want the holy relationship, it will continue on those patterns. You'll leave one relationship, and again, it could be that you left you left your husband, your wife.
So
or
what would
whatever.
you recommend to John with the Pepsi model versus the docent at the Metropolitan Museum of Art? What would you recommend in the shifting? Because I can feel it within myself of how attractive it is to say, wow, the Holy Spirit works wonders. I met the docent at the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Right, right. Because the relationship itself will begin to reveal the same flaws. He'll still end up not feeling that he grew up and won the prize or anything else. There'll always be some failure in it. So then it would have to be that, okay, I'm not getting it. So as soon as you say, I don't get it, because now I'm in another relationship and some of the similar feelings, I'm not even going to say the similar actions happen. The doings of the two relationships might seem very differently, but the feelings that you end up with are usually the same. And you go, God, I felt like this in the other relationship, where I don't feel fulfilled, or I don't feel, like I can be myself.
I know, but can you see that John is in the relationship now with the docent, in a classy situation, and he goes, wow, that sweet girl that was a Pepsi model, that was stupid. I threw her under the bus, and he goes back and tries to reconnect.
Oh,
right.
Well, maybe I don't
He
really
might.
know.
No, I'm just saying
Yeah.
he might try to go reconnect.
Yeah,
It's a rethinking of the past.
Right. Well, and that does happen too. But the main thing is that
How do you stop this from happening?
you have to be honest about whether or not you really handed it over to the Holy Spirit. Because if you really hand the relationship over to the Holy Spirit, it's going to continue to rub us about why we're really in it. And sometimes it doesn't become really, really clear because we want to blame the problem of the relationship on the other.
And in simple, it might be more likely that John can have the atonement and have the new goal. It's possible with the docent and not the Pepsi model.
It's possible. But the thing of it is that it would only change if you're willing to have it be changed, that you want to see it in a new way. You want to see yourself in a new way. You want to see who and what you really are, so you have something to work with. And so the Holy Spirit works with that.
So is time a factor here? Just don't jump out of the frying pan into the fire. Is that the deal?
It can be.
We both jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire. We both did.
Right. Well, and the thing of it is that you calling this a fire?
Well, no, it turns out not to be a fire, but that was an act of faith because given our prior experiences, this certainly could have been jumping out of the frying pan into the fire.
Okay.
Don't you think?
Yes. So I will just say that.
I mean, this is an act of God. We had this conversation before.
I will reveal what happened at the end of the prior relationship before Bill, just because I think it's a good thing. I felt so little, and had took on such a role of submissiveness in the prior relationship that I literally lost a sense of myself. So, because it seemed like a very domineering, very controlling person in my life. Now, at the end of it, because we were doing the Course in Miracles and everything, and I was like, it's not working. I wanted the holy relationship. I kept asking him to turn it over to the Holy Spirit, and he was feeling like he knew exactly what the Holy Spirit was going to say, so he didn't have to.
No need to ask.
What can I say? Anyway, so it came to a critical point where something had to change. He happened to go away for a little while. I finally had some time to think about myself, and I laid all the cards on the table. We literally had an altar there and everything else, and I said, I can't do it anymore. I need a way out, and I need to see it in another way. I need to see myself in another way, and I need to see it now because I'm ready to really consider, suicide or something. In my mind, I am. I don't know if I could ever do that, but I'm just not in a good way. And so the first step was to try and reach out. And I tried to reach out with girlfriends and different things for people to talk to. It didn't work. Nobody wanted to hear. I was like, I just happened to know this man sitting next to me in a very superficial way. And he listened. He listened to me talk a lot. I mean, a lot. It was like somebody ripped the tape off my mouth and I had a chance to talk.
But you okay, just to correct, you didn't do anything skillful.
No, I didn't.
To shift the
but I did,
situation.
I did pray a very fervent prayer, and that was that I could no longer see myself. And I had the experience of bright light. I knew who and what I really was in a past memory. So it was so lost.
Many spiritual
I was down
experiences.
a very deep, dark hole at this point.
Well, in a relationship for 12 years that was dedicated overtly to spiritual growth.
Yes. So there I was. And I said, I have to, let me see myself another way. And I was honest. I said, and I laid all the stuff. All my life was like a big mess. I said, you have it. I just need to see if there's any reason for me to be around anymore. And lo and behold, there was. I mean, and it happened very, very fast because you were already at the end of another relationship. You'd given everything you got for 25 years, and I was at the end of another one for 12 years. And so it just happened to be that our two ships collided and something happened so that you also wanted to see a different way.
My assessment, no matter how I try to understand the way we ended up getting together, the nuances and the confluences and whatnot that happened, I can't understand it, and I'm reduced to just saying it's the grace of God. I mean, I'm really reduced to saying it's the grace of God. It doesn't mean that every one day is a happy paradise after another. You know, because in fact I've seen very, very clearly in the Course in Miracles. Yes, I can see the shadow figures that I overlay on Joanna. I can see the way that I'm playing these games. But the blessing is, she's willing, threading her own issues like a hailstorm, threading them. She's still willing to say, well, let's look at this, let's work at this. So it is workable, mutually workable. But by God, there was no way to predict that was going to happen.
No.
We both, in a sense, I'd say we're reactive. But
and it felt like we were kind of thrown together. There was this weird
but
sense
reactive
of
in a different way. Reactive in a different way. So I'm not going to recommend it to anybody.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't know. It just worked out that way.
Worked out
I don't know.
pretty good.
Well, let's see. Maybe they'll give us an answer here.
No, I mean, the thing of it is that the time is only used to find the truth about yourself. That's the only reason why we're here is to find out that truth. If it's so uncomfortable in a relationship that you just can't find it, I mean, what can I say? You can hand it over and you can see what happens.
Yeah.
But mostly what happens is your own stuff gets risen to the top. So what happened for me in that instant was like, I believed that I was this big. I believed I was like less than a half an inch big on the inside. I believed it so fervently.
You know what? I'm going to say one thing that's an interesting thing. Just popped in my little head is the one thing we did do differently. The one thing we did do differently is make a clear declaration within that situation to say no more.
Yes.
That was the first thing was no more.
Right.
I'm not going to do this.
Right.
That's the only unique thing because her thing and my thing was always, well, just go with the flow. Well, just take her. Well, adjust. Well, just, constantly. The one thing we both did differently was brought the wall down and said no. Bam.
Yeah, it was a big no. It was my biggest no, and I needed to learn to say no.
Right.
I'm the type of person who says yes to a lot of stuff, so I needed to learn to say no. But, that's a lot of psychology, and yet the course is not beyond psychology. It's just that it takes it to another level. Because when you want to see the world differently, and with holy instances, with witnesses to not only who and what you are, but who the other is, in truth, a lot of things can get kind of rocky. And then when you just say, oh, I want to see this another way, and you mean it, you've got to mean it. Otherwise, the Holy Spirit can't come in. It can't do anything.
Okay.
Okay.
5.
Paragraph 5. It would not be kinder to shift the goal more slowly, for the contrast would be obscured, and the ego given time to reinterpret each slow step according to its liking. There you go. Only a radical shift in purpose could induce a complete change of mind about what the whole relationship is for. As this change develops and is finally accomplished, it grows increasingly beneficent and joyous. But at the beginning, the situation is experienced as very precarious. A relationship undertaken by two individuals for their unholy purposes suddenly has holiness for its goal. As these two contemplate their relationship from the point of view of this new purpose, they are inevitably appalled. Their perception of the relationship may even become quite disorganized. And yet the former organization of their perception no longer serves the purpose they have agreed to meet.
When you suddenly, because I can see immediately the difficulty, let's say in your relationship, you would have to tell me, what do you think? Since you would have both filled out on a questionnaire that the purpose of your relationship was holiness, was a holy relationship. That was the whole purpose for the 12 years together, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And so that when you've already declared something as representing a holy relationship, and then you find out you want a holy relationship, that can be problematic, because you're very confusing, because then you have to declare what was before a holy relationship. Suddenly it's an unholy relationship. But no, we've already determined that it's a holy relationship. What do you think about that?
Well, that's why I ended up staying so long. And one of the reasons why I got stuck there was because I thought it would be transformed into a holy relationship. But the thing of it is that both people have to be willing to a certain extent to say, I might not know what's right. There has to be some little organization around it so that some other thing can come in. I thought I was willing. Maybe I wasn't, because I didn't know that I was so tense and wanted him to change his modus operandi, and he wanted me to change my modus operandi. And meaning, my wallflower type of movement, because all of a sudden it seemed like whatever I did wasn't right. And his movement towards wanting a strong being standing as a partner next to him and stuff like that. So we definitely bumped heads about those things. At any rate, there has to be an opening in the relationship. So I may have thought that I handed it over, but maybe I thought I was still right about who I was looking at. Because we have to be able to say, I don't know who I'm looking at, that the Holy Son of God is there in front of me. Now, that doesn't mean I would have stayed. It just means that I needed to see it another way, and I couldn't.
There's
It was too ingrained in me that, he's a certain thing and I'm a certain thing, and it wasn't going to change.
Well, I've gotten attached to the word structure and structural issues. Because sometimes there's an architectural, in other words, the way I have built this relationship, we've animated so many sort of inner subcontractors or construction forces to build our relationship in a certain way, and it can have to do with compassion and tolerance and acceptance and honesty and communication. It can be based on these things, all good things. but it's very much from the point of view of the ego getting a hold of life, getting a hold of relationship, and building relationships in a certain way. And it can be such a successful effort in getting all the materials out there, identifying what the critical path method needs to be to get from point A to point B, and all this kind of stuff, that you just can't, you egoically can't drop it.
Right.
It's like, it seems like such a waste to have so much animated, so much
investment.
Yeah, investment towards these goals. Like in the case of the guy you were with, he knew, totally invested. He knew that if he could push you a certain direction, and he has enough of an idea about how to push in a certain direction, and you knew that there was another, and you both are, in a sense, diametrically, within the spiritual relationship, diametrically opposed to one needing it to push this way and the other needing to push it that way. When you show up after, let's say, 12 years of a relationship and go, wow, we wasted every single second of that.
Yeah.
We just wasted every single second. What were we doing?
Yeah.
It was a waste. It's so disorienting, and it says
Yes.
it. And if the disorientation is great enough, as it says, I'm afraid, you just might have to move on to the docent at the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Well, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, there has to be a new ground that I felt was more fertile for my growth, for my own way that I operate in the world. So like I said, everybody is different, and
Well, let me tell mine. I won't go long because I understand. Joanna told her situation. Mine was, I got a divorce 10 years ago?
yes, more than 10 now.
Yeah, more than 10 years ago. I was okay with everything. I just viewed myself as the Army Corps of Engineers, and she was president of the United States. It's like, we're going to build a bridge, we're going to build a canal, we're going to go to Panama. It doesn't matter. I didn't care. And I saw myself eventually as having styled myself, in a sense, as a nothing but an enabler of getting these things done. I thought that was all virtue on virtue on virtue. I had no demands that I knew of, okay? I don't want to get into psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
I'm sure I did. But I had no overt demands on the relationship. Like, you got to show up and do this. You got to do this. I want biscuits on Sunday. And there's nothing in that realm whatsoever. Totally just a relaxed view. And so I did have one thought in my mind, which is if I saw her bail on the relationship with an overt act, if I saw her make an overt act of self-interest at the expense of the family, regardless of how she interpreted it, I was out.
Right.
And that act of self-interest was, for me, and I had determined this in advance, if she moves away, takes the kids, and starts paying bills, and
signs a contract for a rental.
Yeah.
Without you.
and I wasn't in on it.
Yeah.
Just basically coercing me to play along as she felt confident I would. That's what did it for me.
Right.
So it was in a sense, it was kind of arbitrary, right?
Well, it wasn't arbitrary because there was many, many things that led up to why you even would be able to draw that line in the sand.
Right. No, that's true.
And mine was actually, if he leaves me the third time, because there was already
Three strikes you're out.
3 strikes you're out. It's like, well, okay. So,
Okay.
you have to take care of yourself, the best you can, and in all of your learning, there will be mistakes that we make. There will be falling down and getting back up. But the Holy Spirit is a guarantee that if you're true to yourself and true to what you really desire in having the coursework in your life, it will. It doesn't mean that it's not like all little fairy tales. All of a sudden, woo, that's all great. No. Because, until you can see clearly, we're literally, all the scales have fallen from our eyes. And we see the world, that it's full of love. It's never not been there. And we all have that spark of love within ourselves. Until that it becomes a daily view of what we see, we're kind of stuck with our perceptual reality, and you work the best you can with what you see and how you are. But don't forget to call on help.
Well, this is the first line of paragraph 6 is quite consoling and beautiful, I think.
Yeah, because now it already went through that. It's going to feel disorganized, that the relationship no longer serves its original purpose. So this now is its first statement.
This is the time for faith. You let this goal be set for you. That was an act of faith. Do not abandon faith now that the rewards of faith are being introduced. If you believed the Holy Spirit was there to accept the relationship, why would you now not still believe that He is there to purify what He has taken under His guidance? Have faith in your brother in what but seems to be a trying time. The goal is set, and your relationship has sanity as its purpose. For now you find yourself in an insane relationship, recognized as such in the light of its goal.
Well, that's pretty darn clear.
Yeah, that's really clear. And in terms of the stories we told, I've got an uncomfortable truth, for myself. I wasn't as enlightened as I thought I was.
No, me either.
I structurally and all that, I can make rationalizations for it, but, I bailed. Now, that's water under the bridge. Mm-hmm. And that water under the bridge, I've got several bridges. Mm-hmm. It's not just that one bridge.
Right.
So our ignorance, our lack of enlightenment, my blindness in a relationship, your blindness in a relationship, sometimes is an intentional blindness to keep you in the unenlightened path so that the miracle, the relationship is arranged in a good way.
Right.
It wasn't meant necessarily, I'm just saying, for you to heal that relationship, for me to heal my relationship in a more quote-unquote enlightened state of mind. Mm-hmm. It's an intentional state of blindness so that it does get rearranged in a more effective, so that your architecture is more effective on the other side.
Right. And not only that, but I can see a lot more clearly about who that person was now. At a distance, you can't see it sometimes when you're in it, which allows for the forgiveness of myself for, thinking I was so little, and for him, for me handing the power over to him. It's like people do what they do, and so, it's easier. It took a while to forgive, and then once the forgiveness is there, you're lighter. And so that is the healed relationship. So we just don't know how it's all going to work out. But it's just said there, to have faith. You let this goal be set for you. Now, once you've handed it over, expect some changes. That it was an act of faith. Do not abandon faith now that the rewards of faith are being introduced. If you believe the Holy Spirit was there to accept the relationship, why would you now not still believe that He is there to purify what has taken under His guidance? That doesn't mean that just the other person gets purified. Trust me, all your stuff is there to get purified as well. That's why it's uncomfortable.
And we can't do the Holy Spirit's work.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit does the Holy Spirit's work.
Yeah.
It says it. You let this goal be set for you.
Right.
So we, obviously do the best we can, but I can't be the Holy Spirit.
And at the very end, it said there, for now you find yourself in an insane relationship, because it'll seem, kind of crazy. Recognize as such in the light of its goal. Now its goal is truly the holy relationship. And I can say, in my past relationship, we did hand it over stuff, and it got worse. And it never we never could quite get it to go beyond that.
Well, and you can get together in a certain context where, let's say, two people are in a certain ideology. Mm-hmm. They're aligned ideologically.
Yeah.
And in terms of the healing and the Holy Spirit, one shifts into a new ideology. Mm-hmm. And it's a different ideology than this. And that seems to be a cleavage in the relationship, but we don't know. Stay the course. It says it might seem to be an insane relationship, but we don't know. Right. And so you stay in contact with the Holy Spirit, look for these healing indications that the Holy Spirit is present, and have faith that, in fact, all of those, it said in the very, very beginning, The holy relationship, the holy instants are all there all over the place.
Right.
It's a matter of us remembering them.
Yeah. So now here's where the ego goes. Paragraph 7. Now the ego counsels thus. Substitute this for another relationship in which your former goal was quite appropriate. You can escape from your distress only by getting rid of your brother. You need not part entirely if you choose not to do so, but you must exclude major areas of fantasy from your brother to save your sanity. Hear not this now, and it has that in italics and with an exclamation point. Hear not this now. Have faith in him, the Holy Spirit, who answered you. He heard. Has he not been very explicit in his answer? You are not now wholly insane. Can you deny that he has given you the most explicit statement? Now he asks for faith a little longer, even in bewilderment. For this will go, and you will see the justification for your faith emerge to bring your shining conviction. Abandon him not now, nor your brother. This relationship has been reborn as holy. So I can only say that I wasn't able to do that in my prior relationship. I thought I tried, but obviously maybe I didn't, do that thing. I don't know. No one knows. All you can do is you can do your best with handing it over and hoping that you will begin to see those little shining places that show that the Holy Spirit is working in it. So therefore, stay with it, work it out, or let it work you. It's going to work both of you. And then it's going to be reborn holy.
I've had this thought,
in that holy instant, I don't know that it stays together. I can't even say how those things work. I work with different people.
No, that's why I was saying about the faith. There's forgiveness, and also just recognize that I'm really ignorant of the way that this thing is put together.
Right.
It's very nuanced. Mm-hmm. Okay, death happens to kill off a form that structurally can't work anymore, whether it's because of decrepitude or old age or just its agenda, its items, as we said, its entrenched ways of being that are intractable. And so the form has to shift. This is no problem for the Holy Spirit. It doesn't really care about the forms.
Right.
And so so that just because I went through these things and I go back and I say, well, Phil, because my life is an infinite archive of mistakes and stupid decisions.
I think everybody's is.
No, everyone's is. That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Everyone's is.
Yeah.
And so that gives the ego an opportunity to go back into that life and flog you for all of the mistakes and stupidities. And those are the shadows that were discussed in one of the prior lessons. So what I'm saying is that, no, I think we're in a now. And that all the people in my life, including an older body, including the house, including you, they are changes in form that have allowed a continuity of the growth of this process of coming to the atonement.
Yes.
And that's what this is about, is the atonement.
Yeah.
It's about the atonement. So there's no judging ignorance.
Which is a healing of the separation.
Right. Ignorance and decisions that were made in the past.
And you know what? I think this has probably gone long, and we're probably going to have a part 2 right here. So stay with us. I hope you enjoy us being just honest about everything. Anyway. So we'll go on to part 2. We'll go on to part 2 from
picking
here.
Picking up with paragraph 8.
And again, it's on section 5, the healed relationship, and we'll begin with paragraph 8.
Good enough.